Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome. Today's topic is John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, 1943 to 1944, Part 4. This was originally published as a Zook Family Memories Collection, or ZFMC number 10. This was the beginning of his sophomore year at Oberlin. November 1, 1943. Just got generally settled today. Bruce Partridge got in just after 6. The job as busboy at Gray Gables looks good. Mary Martin and I went to the dance at Warner and to the Arboretum afterwards. A good girl. The whole house enjoyed the nightly performance of the female next door. November 2, 1943. Bruce and I registered this morning. Tarno is back, but Mitch is out working. We moved a bunch of trunks over at Gables. We invited a bunch of boys in for a stag and had a good old time. No performance next door. November 3rd. Classes began today. My professors so far are History, Mr. Arts; Calculus, Miss Sinclair; Gym, Dr. Morrison; German, Miss Ilmer. Calculus looks plenty tough, but German not so tough as I thought it would be. Bruce Partridge found out that his average last term was 89.67. Mighty good. Phi Beta stuff. Studied history this evening. November 4th. Quantitative analysis in chemistry looks plenty tough. Have a date for a Mary for Saturday. This calculus is sending me into another sphere. Studied more than 5 hours this evening. November 5th. Arts has a test scheduled for next Monday. After all the sweating in calculus last night, Miss Sinclair didn't take up our papers. She is a bit on the ethereal side. Had a tough old basketball game in gym. Mrs. Parker had an apple pie for us this evening. Redmond also brought home a bunch of food, a rare evening. Jim Turner slept on the floor in our room. November 6th. Had a 100 on a German paper. Studied on German and history most of the day. Mary and I went to the All College. An odd but interesting evening. Had a noble bull session very late tonight on religion. November 7th. Slept late this morning. Studied calculus this morning and part of the afternoon. Bruce and I went to the open houses at Churchill and Gables. Studied history all evening. November 8th. The history quiz was fairly simple. No picnic lunches were packed for us at Gables, so we raided the icebox and bummed desserts later at the inn. Ginny Norden's picture stands by itself on our new table. Went to Glee Club practice. November 9th. I worked breakfast this morning. Got a B on the German homework. Had the first quant lab. It looks very tedious and exacting. I studied 4 hours this evening on calculus. Bruce Partridge couldn't get his math for the first time in over 2 semesters. Had a light snow early this morning. November 10th. Went to sleep twice today trying to study chemistry. It's getting tough. Duffy dropped a tray load of jam this morning before breakfast. Worked on chemistry and German this evening. November 11th. I was nobly screwed on one question of the German quiz. Flunked chemistry quiz cold. Got to get on the ball in that league. I missed lab lecture this afternoon. We were building fires with methane generated by the boys this evening. November 12th. I got a very short letter with a $1 bill stapled on it from Ginny this morning. A good kid. Made up the lab lecture. All of our rooms were sacked this evening. Mrs. Parker brought us each a piece of cake. Got an A- on the history quiz. The house went out serenading in a heavy snow this evening. I studied late this evening to keep on the weekend schedule. Ed Ryder pushed a piece of chocolate cream pie in Duffy's face this evening. More fun. November 13th. Bruce and I ushered at the homecoming game. Oberlin beat Worcester in football 21-0. I've never been so cold in my life. Mary Martin and I went to the All College and had a big schwunz afterward in the Arboretum. Duff Hagner and I went to Timmy's. Duff's feeling pretty good. Sonny Peck was back. November 14th. I sang in the first church choir this morning and studied calculus this afternoon and chemistry this evening. November 15th. The Blue Books next week have been announced in both history and quantitative analysis. Had 3 letters. Worked on German this afternoon. And then I went to Glee Club practice. Hill brought home 2 quarts of ice cream and a tray of cake. Had a bull session on the relative merits of an economics major and a science major. As a result, I worked until 1 o'clock a.m. on chemistry. C'est la vie. November 16th. I got a B on the German quiz. Was nobly tapped. I calibrated 3 pipettes and 2 flasks in chemistry lab today. Very tedious work. I studied more than 5 hours straight through this evening, 4 on our first assignment in differential calculus. Bruce Partridge has a sore throat. November 17th. I worked breakfast this morning and stayed up late again studying chemistry. My time will have to be organized better than it has been so far this week. November 18th. I worked in the chemistry lab 3 hours this afternoon calibrating a burette and got a lousy 6.5 over 20 on the first chemistry quiz. The German is getting complicated. The girls from Yacht Club serenaded us this evening. Roth had a birthday, and I studied calculus and German. It's after 1 o'clock a.m. again for the 4th time in 4 days. Holy he. November 19th. I pulled up with a D on the German homework and an A- on the calculus homework. I also worked in the lab and went to gym this afternoon. We had a meeting with the social chairman of the Yacht Club, Shirtleff and Johnson, about our house formal. Then I went to the choir rehearsal. I am going to bed early. It's not 11:30 p.m. yet, and Bruce's cold is better. November 20th. I got a lousy C in German. Also checked the chemistry problems in the library this morning. Oberlin knocked off Baldwin Wallace 33-7 today in football to finish up with the first undefeated season since 1925. Oberlin's record this year is the best of any college in Ohio. I studied all evening instead of having a date. The fellows started piling in shortly after 11 o'clock p.m., and they all compared notes on their dates. Bruce got his schwanz from the girl next door, and we all lost a quarter. November 21st. I worked breakfast this morning and missed church this morning and open houses this afternoon studying for the history blue book in the morning. I will probably get a not-too-sharp mark on it because it covers 7 chapters. November 22nd. The history blue book could have been worse. I probably got a C+ or a B-. We had a real old workout in gym, and I got a dandy letter from home. I also studied 4 hours this evening for the quantitative chemistry blue book in the morning, and I cut Glee Club. November 23rd. The quantitative blue book was very tough. I probably got a C or less. I also started the first experiment in lab. I'm now a flower agent for Mr. Wood. I studied all evening as usual, approximately 5 hours. I am becoming a grind. November 24th. Finally got another A in German and finished calibration of volumetric apparatus. I had my picture taken for the Hi-O-Hi and subbed at the inn for Smith. Bruce and I went out to recruit Big Brothers and take flower orders. It's late as usual. November 25th. I pulled down another A in German and had a short quiz in Deutsch. We folded church programs, and I sang in the first church choir for the Thanksgiving service. Redmond got a turkey from the inn, and 4 of us went over to courts shortly after 11 o'clock p.m. Bruce schwanzed Jean. She looks like hell. November 26th. We had a snap quiz in calculus. I worked on dance plans with Mrs. Hatch and finally got a haircut. I went out to the children's home this evening. My little brother is blonde, 7, and a good man. There's certainly a real need there. November 27th. I made $2.01 on flowers this week and had a good old time with the boys this afternoon. I went to the Thanksgiving formal with Mary Martin and had a good time as usual. Bruce Partridge is getting involved with too many women. November 28th. I sang in the choir this morning. We didn't do so well. Bruce and I went out to the children's home again this afternoon. I finally got down to studying this evening and had a terrific bull session on the relative merits of a scientific and a humanity education again. I think my arguments just about set the boys back on their haunches. November 29th. I got a lousy 76 or a C in the history blue book, something else to hit. As Bruce studies less and less, his marks keep on as usual. I don't get it. I went to Chinese class this afternoon and Glee Club this evening. We had some pie, ice cream, and milk this evening. The cooks don't trust us anymore at Gables. What a blow. November 30th. I picked up a D+ in German and worked all afternoon on the AG2O experiment in lab that didn't come out right. I studied in the reserve reading room 3 times. Ginny finally wrote. Mary called this evening and wanted me to go with her to the artist's recital, Milstein the violinist. I studied calculus and German instead of going. December 1. I worked breakfast this morning. A calculus blue book next Monday was announced. I checked plans for the formal again and did the last weighing in the AG2O experiment over again, and the answer came out 93.03, while the exact answer given in the manual is 93.09. Some break. I made arrangements for a house hayride and got a date with Mary for Saturday. Bruce thinks he has a simple fracture in his lower right leg from playing soccer in gym yesterday. Hill was 18 today. December 2nd. The Navy was very ornery in German class this morning. I pulled down a 47 or a D- in our first chemistry blue book. Boy, it'll be a pull from here on in. I was in the lab from 1:30 to 5 o'clock p.m. Bruce got his schwantz from Ev. I studied more than 5 hours this evening. December 3rd. Hill is in the Browning house with the flu and Hagner is in bed with it. The fibula in Bruce's leg is definitely broken. I had a good game of basketball this afternoon and went to choir practice and walked Evie Adams home. She stays about 7 miles from Sandusky during the summer. The Parkers had us down for hamburgers. For the second night in succession, it's after 1:30 a.m. December 4th. I went back to bed after German class this morning and practiced volleyball this afternoon. Oberlin took Camp Perry 57-19 this evening. Mary and I went to the all-college afterwards. Got lots. Werhane is staying here tonight. Hill got out of Browning House and Hagner took his place. Redmond will probably go over tomorrow. It's after 1:30 a.m. December 5th. I sang in the choir this morning and slept and studied this afternoon. Last night, some of the civilian men serenaded Commander Howard. No wonder there is trouble between unit and civilian men. I have resolved to give up smoking until after Christmas vacation. I study for the calculus blue book this evening, and I'm going to bed early. December 6th. Mrs. Parker took Bruce to the hospital this morning. His upper legs were cramped. His temperature was up. He had a chest cold. He felt awful. Wonder what Ev did to him last night. Got all of the problems done in the calculus blue book and have a date with Evie Adams Friday night. I also went to the Glee Club rehearsal, and Hagner is back from Browning House. Mrs. Hatch's office still has no information about a band. The chemistry for tomorrow is the toughest we've had so far. December 7th. Bruce has single pneumonia, the poor guy. I went over to see him again this evening. The Gables gang sent a card. I worked from 1:30 to 5 o'clock p.m. in chemistry lab and got 2 100s on German papers. Also studied 5 hours this evening. December 8th. The house bought a large fruit basket for Bruce. I took it over this evening. He is much better. His temperature was over 104 degrees the other day. Mighty bad. Miss Sinclair has misplaced my calculus blue book. I worked in the lab after gym. The United States declared war 2 years ago today. I hope this thing, the Second World War, doesn't drag on for another 2 years. I'm going to get almost 8 hours sleep tonight. December 9th, Bruce is much better today, and I worked in lab all afternoon. We won both volleyball games this evening. I am unable to do the calculus assignment. December 10th, I got an 85 in the calculus blue book. All of the money is in for the flowers and the fruit basket, and with one exception, all in for the hayride. Bruce is improving steadily. I went to the choir practice and then to So Proudly We Hail with Evie Adams. She seems to be a good kid. The show was really good. I spent nearly an hour at Peak Inn joying with the lads and collecting for flowers. Hill and I set all of the clocks ahead 3 hours. December 11th. Tony and I worked on chemistry this afternoon. The hayride was a big success. It was colder than the dickens, and the wagon was really packed. December 12th. I worked breakfast and studied the rest of the morning. We went out to the children's home after dinner with Ray Terepka and came back early and worked on calculus again. Mother and Dad stopped in this afternoon. Mom was afraid I was getting sick or something. I guess parents will always worry. I stopped over to see Bruce for an hour after supper. He's coming fine except for a bad pain in his back. The girls from Yacht Club brought us a box of candy and an address book. Mighty good house. I studied on calculus all evening. Siebes slept here last night. There was a driving snow out this evening, and it was colder than all hell. December 13th. It was very cold today. I finally got the calculus problem I was stuck on yesterday. Bruce is getting out of the hospital tomorrow. Hill brought home some more food. I study this evening for the chemistry blue book in the morning. I've been very tired and sleepy all day and am going to bed early. December 14th. Some trouble has come up in Bruce's right lung. He is to be x-rayed tomorrow. Probably hit the chemistry blue book for a C. Stinky. Miss Ilmer cut German. I worked in the lab 4 hours this afternoon and studied all evening. There's a driving snow out this evening. December 15th. Bruce was not x-rayed today. His right side has been bandaged, and his temperature is up to 102 degrees. Things certainly aren't looking so sharp for him. Poor guy. It was bitterly cold out when I went to work this morning. I can't make a dent in the calculus assignment. We'll finally get 8 hours sleep again tonight. December 16th. Mr. Broman cut chemistry today. I worked all afternoon in lab. Bruce will not have to be operated on because there isn't very much fluid in his right lung. He'll be in for about a week yet. The house won both volleyball games. We had a whale of a ball game with Peak Inn, and I still can't make a dent on tomorrow's calculus. December 17th. Professor Freddie Arts went over the 100 Years' War this morning in about 10 minutes. What a man. Got a bunch of things for Bruce this afternoon and worked on the children's home party like mad. Bruce isn't coming along so well. His right side really bothers him quite a bit. I had a fine time being Santa Claus at the children's home party, and I really had a big charge. I forgot the key to my bike lock and had to carry my bike home. December 18th. I had a session with Miss Sinclair this morning and washed windows and helped put up the Christmas tree at Gables. I bought Christmas presents and made nearly $4 on corsages. Bruce is a little better today. Don Herdman, class of 1942, second lieutenant in the Army Air Corps, slept in Bruce's bed tonight. Mary Martin and I went to the Christmas formal. Afterwards, she gave me a photo of herself that really sends me. Oberlin took case. December 19th. I sang in church this morning, Vespers this afternoon, and a carol service this evening. Bruce Partridge is improving. Dinner went along all right. The calculus assignment really jolted me. It's after 3 o'clock a.m. and I still don't have it finished. Ho hum. December 20th. I've been rather dull today and finally finished the calculus. I also finished buying Christmas presents. I finally have a band for the house formal. What a relief. Had our Christmas meal at Gable's this evening. 5 poor kids came as guests and were really pop-eyed most of the evening. Bruce is very much better today. Babe baked us a cake. Got Hill another date. It's just shortly after midnight. A good night's sleep is in the offing. Finally. December 21st. I've been extremely dopey today. Chemistry is getting tough again. I got a C- on the last chemistry blue book. Bruce is definitely making plans to go home after over vacation. We had a meeting with the other house social chairman about the formal. Everything is under control. I titrated all afternoon in chemistry lab. We were serenaded twice tonight. December 22nd. I got an A+ in the calculus paper that I worked on until 3:30 the other morning. I took Mary's presents over before dinner, and then Evie and I went to the rec and the show afterwards. Evie seems to be a fine girl. Bruce came home from the hospital this evening and went over to Yacht Club and had the big schwantz with Gretch. He is extremely thin and gets very tired and winded at the least provocation. He lost 19 pounds. Hale brought home 3 delicious apple pies. December 23rd. I still don't understand the chemistry we're doing. Vacation officially began this morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Bruce went home. I certainly hope he makes it all right. I saw Mary as she was leaving this afternoon. My bus pulled out of Oberlin at 3:25. It's good to be home to see the folks and get some rest. I went to bed at 8 o'clock p.m. December 24th. I didn't wake up until 12 o'clock noon today. 16 hours sleep. Letters came from Mary and Harold this morning. The family took off about 4 o'clock p.m. for Marion, Ohio. One of the long-established Zook customs was carried out again this evening. Santa Claus came in person. I wasn't able to get hold of Neil. I went to Ginny's about 9 and got back about 3 a.m. She gave me a dandy all-wolf scarf. We had a super terrific schwantz fest. Better watch myself. Harold didn't make it home this year. He brought Marge a ring for Christmas. I slept at Aunt Mary's. December 25th. We drove back to Sandusky this morning with Grandma and Grandpa. We all went out to Uncle Fred Zook's for dinner and supper and just fooled around between times. The ice was slick, so most of us went skating, even Mother. But we played goop after supper and came back about 9:30 and went to bed. December 26th. Grandma, Grandpa, and Uncle Fred's family were in for dinner and supper. We have done nothing except eat in tremendous quantities, sleep, and play for the last 3 days. This morning I got busy on my lab experiments and had them up to date by evening. I'll have to do parts of 2 of them over again. This terrific eating orgy has me started on a small cold. This is the last whole day of vacation. December 27th. I worked on history this morning and left Sandusky on the 3:50 bus. There were only 30 for dinner. Roth and I went over to Courts. Everyone's back except Duff and Bruce. The chemistry for tomorrow is very tough. December 28th. We're back in the rut again. Study, work, sleep. Study, work, sleep. I worked all afternoon in lab and checked the unit band this evening. Pretty good. Only studied about 3 hours. December 29th. I finally bought a decent desk lamp and got my blue pants up to the cleaners. Miss Sinclair announced a Blue Book Friday in calculus. I got excused from Jim for a bad throat and worked in chemistry lab. Bruce sent an airmail saying that he'll be back by Friday. Flower sales for New Year's are over $50 so far. I studied about 4 hours this evening, and my throat is pretty sore. December 30th. All 3 of us were late for breakfast. I kicked over a milk can while carrying a load of desserts. and worked in lab all afternoon. The chemistry quiz was announced. Flower orders are over $65. We won both of our volleyball games. I worked on German for 2 hours. I haven't studied for the calculus blue book yet, and my throat is better. December 31st, 1943. The calculus blue book was extremely tough. I probably flunked it. Everyone else had trouble. Bruce Partridge got in this morning and looks a little better than when he left. The flower orders are over $75. I worked in chemistry lab again and went to the New Year's formal with Mary Martin and had a good old time. 1944 is more than 4 hours old. January 1st, 1944. I slept through until noon today and then went back to bed after dinner. Studied after supper until 10:30 when Roth and I went over to the courts. Gretch broke her date with Bruce because Frank Wood is in town. Bruce got a date with Kolb. We have 3 servicemen in the house tonight. January 2. I studied history all day. Bruce is getting disgusted about his calculus, so he had a date with Gretch tonight. I'm planning to study history all night. January 3rd. When the alarm went off for the 3rd time this morning at 3 o'clock a.m., I turned over for a short snooze and woke up at 7:30. Lots of laughs. The blue book wasn't too bad. I got 1.5 out of 3 on the calculus blue book. Probably rates about a C. I made $11.26 on flower sales this last time, and I went to the Glee Club practice. We had some food and bulled because it's Hill's last night here. January 4th. I worked breakfast. I messed up the chemistry quiz and got a very accurate result in lab experiment with Belknap. I had a very interesting letter from Ginny. Hill left for the Army this morning. It's late and I'm even more tired than usual. January 5th. Oberlin lost to Bowling Green last night, 69-41 in basketball. Mr. Arts cut history this morning. Had a very sore throat this morning. I went to the clinic this afternoon and got another letter from Ginny. Mother Dudley laid me out this noon. I studied more than 5 hours this evening on chemistry and German. January 6, 1944. I made 1N acid solutions all afternoon and still can't find my bike. Some scoundrel. We took both our volleyball games tonight. One a tough one against the faculty and the other a forfeit. We have another soldier staying here tonight. The calculus is getting tougher. January 7th. I got a 70 or a C- on the history blue book. Nearly everyone slipped. I found my bicycle in front of Elmwood this afternoon. Bruce dated Marge Steinmetz this evening. Andre is back before his induction Monday. I went to choir practice. I'm in the process of either really getting sick or completely throwing this thing off. January 8th. I've taken things very easy all day. Bruce and I wrote the house write-up for the Hi-O-Hi. I've nearly finished calculus. Bowling Green took Oberlin tonight, 62-60 in basketball. A tough one to lose. I stayed in tonight to try to kill this cold. January 9th. I slept 11 hours last night. I've done nothing but study, wait table, and eat today. I've been an awful grind this weekend. However, this cold is my excuse for not going out. Bruce Partridge had 3 dates over this weekend. I talked with Andre this evening. He's being inducted tomorrow morning. He seems just a little bit nervous. January 10th. I studied chemistry this morning, this afternoon, and this evening. I think I really learned a few things. Hope so. January 11th. I think I finally got a decent mark on the Quant Blue Book. However, you can never tell. I spent 4 hours in the chemistry lab. John Rumley posted a caricature of me in the pantry this evening. Funnier than the Dickens. I studied more than 6 hours this evening. January 12th. I got 2 100s in German and worked in the lab and went to gym in spite of a bad throat. Didn't accomplish very much this evening. I got a date with Mary for Saturday. January 13th. Today's chemistry was very tough. I got a 12 over 20 on the chemistry quiz. I started working on an unknown this afternoon. We won our last 2 volleyball games tonight to finish the season with 10 wins and no losses. Then we serenaded Gables, Churchill, Guild, and Yacht Club. My throat was very sore today. January 14th. Finally got another A+ in calculus and another 100 in German. I got a haircut this afternoon and shaved. I also went to Glee Club rehearsal and choir practice. Mother called this evening. I had a 5-page letter from Ginny, which didn't say very much. At times I don't think that girl's too intelligent. Mary thinks we serenaded Churchill last night at my request. Big joke. I walked Ev home from choir. My throat is very much better today. January 15th. I spent the entire morning doing German and going to German class. I only slept an hour this afternoon. Then I went to the show and rec with Mary. No schwunz, my throat's still bad. January 16th. I slept through till noon today and studied all afternoon and all evening. Bruce Partridge is rather unsettled about him and Gretch. It's an interesting situation. January 17th. Professor Freddie Arts gave a very interesting lecture this morning on the medieval universities and their students, an almost exact parallel of the modern college student. I washed windows at Gables for an hour this afternoon and went to Glee Club practice. Bruce and I are going to be in a girls' quartet. Sounds like fun. We had our house pictured for the Hi-O-Hi taken this evening. January 18th. I worked breakfast for Bruce this morning and didn't get anywhere with the unknown in lab this afternoon. Very discouraging. Made final arrangements for the formal. Only studied 4 hours this evening, and I'm very tired for some reason. January 19th. I did lab work over today and got much better results. We moved the whole dining room out at Gables preparing for the party. Later we went back and moved it all back in again. I have a distinct aversion for study lately. It has been a beautiful day. January 20th. I ran 10 titrations on the base unknown in chemistry lab this afternoon and got a 5 over 10 on the last chemistry quiz. I also went to the Glee Club rehearsal. This girl act will really be good. January 21st. I did another double calculus assignment. We had blue books announced for next week in history and calculus. I did calculations for the base unknown. The sports festival at the gym was called off, so Mary and I had a study date. We had a good old song fest this evening. Hagner got his orders for the 29th, and I went to choir practice. January 22nd. I got up and finished the German before time for class and turned in the chemistry unknown before noon. I was in the library all afternoon and half an hour this evening reading 139 pages of history. Mary and I went to her house formal and had a fine time. We went down to Timmy's afterwards with the lads. Andre is back in uniform. We had a beautiful snow this evening during the formal outside. January 23rd. I helped set up the dining room at the inn this morning and went to church for the first time in a month. I did the calculus along with a lot of fooling around this afternoon and went to the library for a while this evening. I'm starting to drive on back chemistry assignments. I had a headache after studying it for 2 hours. Rather complicated stuff. January 24th. Found out that our History Blue Book Friday covers 13 chapters. Wow. Mrs. Parker had a big hen party this evening. Otis made enormous sandwiches for us this evening at the Standard. January 25th. I pulled up with a C+ on the last Chemistry Blue Book and worked 4 hours in the lab. Bruce got the clothes from Gretch for our act Saturday night. Yacht Club bought us 2 boxes of candy. We serenaded them again. January 26th. I did an extremely dull thing in the Calculus Blue Book this morning. Made a mistake and didn't cover all of the material assigned for the Blue Book. Tough apples. Al Price came over to look at the rooms. After he'd gone, Mrs. Parker came up and said that she had never been able to stand colored people and that we couldn't have Al in the house. We were more than slightly disgusted and very let down. I began to study for the History Blue Book. January 27th. I got up early this morning to study. Bromond is sick, and Dr. Morrison gave a mighty fine lecture on activities. I worked in the lab and studied history this afternoon, too. We played our first basketball game this evening. Scotty broke his ankle early in the second quarter. Hurt him like hell. Didn't finish the game. Bruce played too and was sorry later. I'm going to get up early to study for the History Blue Book. Hagner left yesterday afternoon. January 28th. I got up early to study for the History Blue Book. Probably got another C. Got a 35 on the Calculus Blue Book. However, the marks were extremely low. She said she would count it very little since I hadn't studied the right material. Very decent of her. She's giving me a chance to redeem myself Monday. Got some grapefruit shells for boobs for tomorrow night. And went to the choir practice and then to chapel to practice our act. Bruce and I went uptown and to the rehearsal in our girls' outfits. January 29th. I got up and studied German this morning and paid $125 in dance bills this afternoon. I was too sleepy to study history in the library this afternoon. The men's glee club concert went off fine this evening. In our girl act, one of my grapefruits fell out on the floor. Everyone had hysterics. Lots of fun. The formal was a big success. I had a good time with Mary. All in all, a very big day. January 30th. I worked breakfast this morning and went up to the inn to set up the dining room. I went to church and sang in the choir and made expenses on the house formal. Went out to Babe's for dinner late this afternoon and worked on calculus this evening. It is very damn tough. Ginny called from Marion this afternoon. She and Mert are coming to Cleveland the 12th. Bruce, Gretch, Tarno, and I are going in to tear things apart with them. Nancy Wilson called this evening and asked me to the Cranford Formal next Saturday night. I'm bitter for the duration. Mary asked me for a date last night for next Saturday. Bruce schwuntzed cola for 4 hours. January 31st. I worked breakfast again and paid the last of the formal bills and got registration forms. I also saw Miss Sinclair about the Blue Book and we had a wet snow. I'll finally get lots of sleep tonight, 8 hours. It's really been tough to keep awake today. Hagner's back on furlough. February 1st. I felt very rested this morning and got a 7.5 out of 10 on the last chemistry quiz. I had no chemistry quiz, and next Tuesday, Chemistry Blue Book has been canceled because Mr. Bromond is so far behind in his lectures. We had a very long lab lecture. I started the next experiment in cooking. Bruce and I visited the new girl on the other side of the house, not the courts, and I studied till after midnight. February 2nd. I got a C+ on the History Blue Book and worked this afternoon on stage crew at the chapel. Another girl called me for a date Saturday night. February 3rd. I got up early and studied German this morning. Chemistry is getting very tough. We had another lab lecture and finished another experiment. I went to the meeting for House Reps for the CSO drive. A fine southern chicken called up for a date this evening. Tough apples. I had a letter from an unknown admirer saying that she is going to take me to the show Wednesday night. Interesting. All college athletics have been called off for this week because of the spinal meningitis. Bruce turned down a 2A deferment for physics. I studied calculus this evening. February 4th. I finished the history course today. Review now for 2 weeks. Got nearly half an experiment done this afternoon. Big Mick was taken to Cleveland with meningitis. This is the 4th case on campus. Both weekend formals have been postponed because of it. I went to choir practice. Ev had to meet Peg, so I couldn't walk her home, and I slept 2 hours this evening. All the chemistry majors are worrying about there being only 5 2A deferments allowed to the department. February 5th. I really felt rested this morning after 8 hours sleep. I got caught up on my back German and history and went to see Pirates of Penzance with Mary this evening. It was a really fine movie. Mary is on the verge of catching something or other. There's been a terrific gale out all evening. We think my unknown admirer is Helen Hazlitt. What a blow. February 6th. Went to choir practice and church this morning and worked on calculus all afternoon. The men's glee club sang at the Navy Assembly. I went to a very interesting discussion at Beacon. Larry Durgan really has some fine ideas. February 7th. I worked breakfast. Didn't get such fine results on the first part of the chloride experiment. I studied chemistry this evening and didn't get much done. February 8th. I came to the realization this morning that I'm way behind in chemistry. I did poorly on the quiz. This chemistry we're in now is positively the most difficult stuff I've ever had in any course. I had a long lab lecture and worked on 2 more experiments. And I had a special from Ginny this morning saying that Mert can't come Saturday. I studied nearly 5 hours this evening. Lights in all the dorms on campus are supposed to be out at 11 o'clock p.m., and students are not to sleep closer than 6 feet apart because of the spinal meningitis going around. February 9th. I worked breakfast this morning and did nearly all of the second part of the chloride experiment and turned in registration papers this afternoon. My date this evening was a farce. It turned out to be Helen. I was down in the basement at Gables, and she came down after me. We finally retreated to the vegetable room and got out through a window. Mighty close call. Bruce is going to read for honors in physics and have a major in math also. February 10th. I studied chemistry this morning and worked in the lab for over 4 hours this afternoon. I didn't have any trouble with Helen today. 2 girls from Churchill sent the house 6 roses. Yacht Club sent us 1 big one. Our dates this evening sent us flowers which we wore in our hair. Ginny, Ev, Sally, Bruce, Tony, and I triple dated to the show on Leap Week dates. We had our house picture taken again. Mrs. Parker served grape juice and popcorn. Ross got his sailing orders. He's being sent to Hobart College, New York. I got my German before going to bed while Bruce did my calculus. Schmeck trick. February 11th. I got up at 6:30 a.m. and studied history and didn't turn any calculus problems in because I didn't have time to go over them. Finished the chloride experiment, but my balance is off and the results weren't so fine. Duff, Hagner, Roth, and Redmond went on Leap Week dates dressed completely as girls. We had a beautiful, very deep snow today. I worked on German and calculus this evening and finished up my first 23 integrations. February 12th. I worked on calculus about 2.5 hours and could only get 9 more integrations done. The waitresses took the bus boys to the Vars for a Coke after lunch today. I left on the 5:15 bus for Cleveland. Bruce and Gretch didn't go because Gretch could only get an 11 per. Met Ginny at the station. We really had a fine evening together. I took her an orchid that Ginny Amerio fixed up for me. Beautiful flower. I came back on the late bus. I was the only one on campus to go to Cleveland because of the spinal meningitis restrictions. February 13th. I slept until 11 o'clock this morning and studied chemistry until dinner. Belknap and I worked on chemistry all afternoon and for over 5 hours this evening. I'm finally getting my teeth into the course. February 14th. I worked breakfast this morning and finished calculus in time for class. I worked on chemistry this afternoon and this evening. However, the lads are having a party for Hagner and made so damn much noise I couldn't study. I will try again early in the morning. The snow is still getting deeper. February 15th. We had no chemistry quiz today, but we dived into the solubility product. I worked in the lab for 4 hours this afternoon and studied 4 hours this evening. Hagner left for the Army this afternoon. He's a darn good man and we'll miss him. The Yale-Princeton game is on this evening. I had a fine letter from Ginny and some candy from Grandma Zook. February 16th. I went to the hospital after lunch to see about my ankle, which I sprained yesterday. They even took an x-ray of it. Doc Bradshaw said it was cracked and taped it up. Then I went over and got an A on my swimming final. Bruce was riding me to dinner when we hit a sharp curb and bent the front rim double. I studied chemistry this evening with Tony. February 17th. I worked chemistry problems all morning and all afternoon in chemistry class and chemistry lab. I couldn't get even a small start in any of them. I'm slowly beginning to get hold of things, very slowly. I got an 8 over 20 on our last quiz and 100 on my unknown. Just plain luck. Tony and I worked all evening on our lab book. It has to be in tomorrow. I have a quiz average of slightly better than 50% for the term. The weather is pretty lousy with slush all over the place and a slow drizzle most of the time. Good weather for finals. February 18th. The way Miss Sinclair talked this morning, our calculus final is going to be something. I finished up the lab notebook this afternoon in chemistry just as Mr. Broman came in and asked for the last of them. To be continued. Now we have 3 comments on this passage. John S. Ray's college diary. First one is from John S. Ray himself, the author, quote, ZFMC number 10 really transported me back. It showed very clearly the academic struggle, the fun, the good times, and some of the crazy things we did while undergraduate students at Oberlin College. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. Thank you. John S. Ray, Cleveland, Ohio. Another one from Mark Ray, my brother. Quote, it was great to relive some of Dad's college days. I felt like I was there. I didn't realize how tough it really was. We heard all the fun stories growing up, but now I realize how much labor went into learning. Maybe we had it a little easier at Oberlin. What does schwanzing mean anyway? Mark D. Ray, Brimfield, Massachusetts. And finally, one from my mother, Ruth Ray, quote, Schwanzed? Ruth S. Ray, Cleveland, Ohio. So that concludes today's presentation of John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, 1943 to 1944, Part 4. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.